Hello, welcome back to Talk About Strange. Now stop right there. Before you hit that button to move on to the next video or somebody else's video, I just wanted to let you know this is a really interesting story. So please stick around. You're really going to enjoy this. I want to forewarn you up front that this is one of my tougher messages to read here. It's not real strong content. It's very tasteful. She wrote this very well to us, but it's a strong subject, and so I just want to warn you ahead of time that it's a little bit of a tough subject for some people. It's actually a tough subject for me, but it just turns out really well, and you're just going to really enjoy this story. So, welcome to Talk About Strange. I hope you enjoy. If you got to hit a doggone button, hit that like and subscribe button. I don't mind one bit if you like and subscribe to my channel because I'd love to have you here. We're going to continue on. We got a lot more stories to come. I got a lot of stories coming in. I'm going to be doing some campfire tales. We're coming into winter, so it's going to be a little bit tough. I'm trying to plan that out. And we're going to be getting back out to the woods and nature and maybe do some stuff out there. And we got some really good stuff to come. So stick around, and you're really going to enjoy it. And it's going to be a fun channel to watch grow with me, okay? All right, so let's get right on to this story. And if you have a message or story, send it in to me. All right. Talk About Strange. That's how instead of hi, Steve. Hi, Steve. My name is Wendy. I am 58 years young, and I still live in Alaska. After you hear my story, you might ask me why. But the fact is, even though it might be one of the most dangerous places on Earth, it is still the most beautiful place on Earth to live. I'm forewarning you now, this is not a bird-watching Harlequin romance story, nor am I, or ever have I been, what you might call Harlequin model material. I'm what you might call a rugged, full-figured woman, but don't get me wrong, I'm very proud of who I am and how I look. I just don't want to give the wrong impression going into the story. There are 3 people and 1 Bigfoot on Earth that know what I'm about to tell you. This is why I must remain anonymous and took every precaution possible sending this story to you. I know I am not alone, and whoever hears this story, if you choose to share this on your channel, I want them to know you are not alone either. There are support groups out there for people that have had encounters that changed their lives forever. This is why I'm sharing this story with you. My husband and I used to be Bigfoot investigators before it was cool and all over the TV. Well, he was really. I was more of a camping enthusiast, to be honest. Even though I found a lot of what he called compelling evidence, I really didn't buy into it as much as he did. We traveled all over the country, though, and I met a lot of really cool people and fun people along the way. Some were a bit fruity, some kind of scary, but most friendly and most having fun. I really enjoyed hiking, fishing, and living off the land. We found ourselves in some really remote areas, though, sometimes a little remote for me. But I was always armed and ready for almost anything. We had a couple of close grizzly bear encounters in Montana. A moose chased us for almost a mile in Anchorage, Alaska. That wasn't fun at all. I can't imagine that was fun. I've heard stories about moose. But we laughed about it for days after. One time in the state of Washington, I was out for a hike alone when I had a massive cougar stalk me all the way back to our camp. I radioed it into my husband, and he was waiting with his rifle when we got back and chased it off. I guess you have to expect that sort of thing to happen when you spend as much time in the woods as we did. But what happens next, no one should ever expect. It was the summer of 1990. By now we had traveled, camped, and investigated most of the country. But there was one place not far from us we still hadn't been, and for good reason. It's called Prince of Wales Island, aka Bigfoot Island. If you watch that TV show called Expedition Bigfoot, they filmed there. I tried to watch it, but it brought back too many memories. It was every bit as dangerous as they say. I'm warning you now, don't go. Don't go there. This is a place where people go and never come back. Everyone knows this place is mostly off limits and dangerous. And even though I said I don't buy into it completely, this place scared me for some reason. But it was nearby and we needed to escape reality a while. The thing is, we had been trying to have a child for several years. Every pregnancy ended earlier or not at all. So our adventures kind of kept us going. And so we went, despite all my senses telling me to sit this one out. We reached our location and made camp in the early afternoon. My husband was anxious to get started and set out to scout the area for a bit. I stayed behind and set camp up better for the weekend, like I always do. He got back as it was getting dark. We ate dinner, had a couple of drinks while planning the next couple of days there, then settled in for the night, as usual. Sometime after dark, we started hearing noises in the woods. Some were far off, but some were just outside of our camp. A couple times we heard what sounded like something big walking around the campsite. My husband checked it out, but didn't see anything. Believe it or not, this is fairly common in the woods at night, when your senses are all heightened. Most of the next day we spent out together and did some serious hiking. Like I said, we have seen a lot of forests in our travels, but this forest is the creepiest forest I'd ever been in. It was mostly dark, wet, swampy, and eerie. We've seen a lot more evidence than anywhere ever before, like big footprints that actually look like big, rough human feet and broken trees. But strangely, not a lot of wildlife. The whole time we felt like we were being stalked. It was like that same feeling when that cougar was stalking me in Washington, only I couldn't see whatever it was, and it was almost constant. We made our way back to camp that evening about the same time, made our dinner together, and had a couple of drinks. This time we had a lot to talk about, but I could tell he was different this time too, almost like he was close to finding what he was looking for, but wasn't really sure if he wanted to find it. The next day, he set out on his own. This was normal routine for us. He would go do his thing, and I would hang back, maybe take a little hike, but mostly do some fishing, get stuff cleaned up. Sometimes I'd read a book. I decided to go fishing not far from the camp, about 150 to 200 yards away. It was a little nicer morning, the birds were singing, and I wanted to try and get some sun on the bank of the river. It only took a couple of hours to catch a string of fish, so I put my pole away and cleaned them on a big rock by the water. I was just about done when I got that feeling again. I literally felt the hair on my neck stand up. I got scared and was looking around but didn't see anything. I quickly finished up and started walking back toward the camp. As I moved forward away from the noisy river, I noticed the sound of the birds was gone. In fact, it was completely quiet, and there was a foul odor in the air. I looked around to see if there was any dead animals or fish nearby me, but didn't see anything. I heard branches snapping in the woods, only 20 or 30 foot away from me. I got really scared. I was expecting a bear to come flying out at me at any moment. I started fumbling around, trying to get to my pistol, so I dropped my fishing gear and fish on the ground. I ended up tripping on the poles and fell forward into a pile of timbers. As I was trying to get up, all at once, I got extremely lightheaded. I thought it was my nerves, and I tried to fight through it, but instead, I guess I passed out. When I came to, I was back near the river, but I wasn't quite sure where. As my vision came back, I could see the big rock where I'd cleaned the fish downstream from me a ways. I tried to stand up, but it was really difficult at first. I was in a lot of pain, like I had been punched in the gut over and over. My clothes were torn in several places. I think at this point, you can put the rest together yourself. I crawled down to the river and splashed some water on my face, hoping I was dreaming and about to wake up, hoping that maybe I fell and hit my head on a rock or something and was dazed. I made my way back to the big rock so I could find my way back to camp. When I got there, I seen that the fish guts so I could make my way back to camp. When I got there, I seen the fish guts and heads were all gone. I continued my way to the camp. It was starting to get towards evening. Oddly, I found my fishing gear and gun in the same spot that I passed out. I noticed that I could hear the birds again when I got there. My husband wasn't back yet. So I changed my clothes and downed half a flask of his whiskey, followed by a lot of water. I really had no idea what to make of it all. I was tired, disgusted, and completely confused at what actually happened. I felt like my mind wasn't my own, and I honestly wasn't sure if it even was real. I know I was attacked and pretty sure I'd been assaulted. I just didn't understand how or by whom. I had to try and shake it off. I guess I was thankful to be alive and not bear scat. So I started working around the camp, getting the fire going, making dinner. It was getting really close to dark when I realized my husband wasn't back. I started to realize that something might have happened to him. So I got out a radio and I tried to reach him, but he didn't respond. I tried for 2 hours thinking, my God, how would I stay in this camp alone all night and what might have happened to him? Then all of a sudden I heard something stumbling through the woods. I grabbed my pistol and was ready to shoot first thing that came out at me. Thank God I didn't. To my relief, it was my husband, and he was just as happy to see me in the camp as I was to see him. I asked if he was okay, because he was all out of breath and stumbling around like he'd been drinking. He was obviously exhausted and shaken up. Boy, am I glad to see you. He nervously chuckled and gave me a big hug. I asked again what happened. Where have you been? He said, I don't know what happened out there. I got completely lost. I kept hearing noises all around me. I tried to find where they were coming from, but they led me out further and further away from camp. I started to realize that I might be in danger, so I tried to turn back, but my compass stopped working. Then I tried to radio you. My walkie died too. I had that same feeling like we had yesterday, like something was following me the whole time. I kept smelling this wicked, awful smell around me. At one point it got so bad I started running. I swear I heard something chasing me. I wasn't sure if I was going to make it back at all. He said he had never been so scared in his life. Let me tell you, he isn't the kind of guy that scares easy either. Then he said, I finally got a grip and looked for the sun setting. That's how I figured out how to start back this way. He said everything was dead quiet out there the whole time I was lost, except for the footstep branches breaking around me, right up until I found my way back here. And I probably wouldn't have found you if you hadn't lit the fire. A couple of times I seen smoke and the glow, so I followed it here. After he settled down a bit, he turned to me and asked, how are you? Are you okay? You look pretty frazzled yourself. I looked him straight in the eyes and said, yeah, I'm okay. I was just really scared I'd lost you. I wasn't ready and really didn't know how to tell him what happened, and somehow I thought it must have been connected. That night we had dinner and several drinks, then turned in. He fell asleep while I stared at the tent walls in horror, grasping my pistol most of the night, waiting for the worst to come. But instead it was a relatively normal sounding night. The next morning I noticed that he wasted no time packing up, and I did my best to hide my pain and fear from him as he packed and headed back home. A few days had passed and I could tell there was something wrong with me. So I went into the doctor. Obviously I didn't tell him what had happened. I just said that my husband and I went camping and maybe fooled around in the woods, if you get my drift. He said, I just have an infection and it's good I came in when I did, that the next time use a blanket or something. He prescribed me some antibiotics and I thought that would be the end of it. A few weeks later, I started feeling really sick. I thought maybe the infection came back, but was a lot worse than the first time. So I went back to my doctor again. He ran some tests and shortly after came back into the room with a smile on his face. I asked him, what are you smiling about? He said, well, it looks like you brought back something extra from the camping trip. My heart sunk straight to my gut. I asked, what was he talking about? He said, you don't have an infection, he laughed. You're pregnant. My hand straight covered my mouth as I said, don't fook. Don't fook with me, Doc. He replied, it's still very early and we can run more tests. But in my opinion, you're pregnant. I'll give you a few minutes to let that set in, he chuckled and left the room. But he had no idea what he had just laid on me. At that time, I'd rather he'd said I had a bad infection. That feeling of disbelief was back. I didn't know what I should do. I'm very strongly against abortion, though I have to admit, it was the very first thing I thought of. But for some reason, I just couldn't do it. I mean, I really still wasn't sure what happened to me out there. I had to tell my husband something, but I didn't know how or what to say. So I just prayed it would work itself out, and a few weeks later, I told him that we finally did it. He was so happy for the first time since we'd returned from that trip, it seemed a cloud had lifted, and somehow this all became more of a miracle than a nightmare. I prayed every day that it was his baby anyway, until I had started to believe it myself. At least that's what I tried to convince myself of. After 9 of the most confusing and painful months of my life, the time had come. I was in labor. It seemed like forever. Finally, the moment of truth had come, and I watched the doctor's faces to see if he made any funny or disgusted looks. I half expected him and the nurses to scream and run out of the room, but he didn't. Instead, he smiled as he held the baby up and said, "Congratulations, it's a girl." When he turned her around for us to see, I burst out crying. My husband hugged me tight and said, "It's okay, honey, we did it. She's beautiful." They couldn't see it, but I knew at first sight what I was looking at. As human as she looked, she wasn't his baby, at least not genetically. Aside from a lot of hair, you couldn't tell she was anything more than a hairy baby girl. The doctor made a comment about it, but said that was fairly normal and will probably go away. But it didn't, and over the next couple of years it got much worse. Her pediatrician called it hypertrichosis. I'm sorry if I get that wrong. Or Heristism. I'm sorry. I'll type it out here so you guys can figure it out. Hypertrichosis or Heristism. Anyway, I'll put that up here. And wanted to do some testing, but I said no because I was afraid of what they might actually find out. My husband was pretty upset with me about it and started to become suspicious. So I finally had no choice but to tell him the truth. Imagine that conversation for a moment and the look on his face when I said, honey, our daughter's a Sasquatch. Yeah. Well, at first he got really mad and didn't believe me at all. Then he questioned my sanity. I can't say I blame him there. I can't say I blame him either. Then he asked how long I had been cheating on him and demanded a DNA test. I argued what would happen to her if it got out to the public. Finally, I brought out the old bag of torn, blood-stained clothes that I was wearing when it happened and laid them out on the floor in front of him. It was the first time I'd seen him since that day. He stared in disbelief for a few minutes as it came together for him. Then he collapsed to his knees and clenched the clothes in his fists. I could see the fury coursing through his veins, and then the sadness hit him as he looked up at me. This was the first time I'd ever seen him cry. All at once, he sprung up to his feet and straight for the gun cabinet. I knew if he went hunting for this creature, I'd never see him again. So I pulled, pushed, begged him not to go. I explained that I think it happened for a reason and that we are lucky to even be alive. That there's only one thing that we got, the only thing that got me through, and no matter what, she is our daughter to love and protect. I even told him that what he was searching for all those years is sleeping in the room right now. It took everything I had, but I convinced him to stay. Now we needed to make a plan to hide her in plain sight so she wouldn't become a lab animal. So we did some research and found a private specialist in electrolysis and started a long battle of removing enough hair that she could someday attend school, but ended up homeschooling her until junior high. We all have canine-like teeth, but hers are quite a bit more pronounced. We had to have them filed just a little. By the time she was 12, she was taller than both of us at 6 foot. Of course, she ended up playing high school basketball and got through college on a partial scholarship. She then went on to become a social worker. She's 32 years old and 6'4" tall, married and has 2 beautiful kids and are already quite tall. When she was 27, she asked us to tell her the truth, that she knew there was something different about her and she needed to understand exactly what that was. We thought it would crush her, but instead, after a few days of processing, she thanked us for telling her and for being her parents. I was very worried she might want to meet her real father somehow, but thank goodness she never asked us to try. She still gets electrolysis treatments and probably always will. Not that it matters. She is so beautiful inside and outside anyway. Oh, and strong as hell. Not normal strong either. Laugh out loud. We know exactly where that came from. It doesn't matter though, because she's our baby girl and I wouldn't change a thing about her. So remember, always count your blessings no matter where they might come from, because there's always some good in everything, even if you look hard enough. So that's my story. Believe it or not, I'm one of many. Maybe after hearing this, more will come forward. Thank you for giving us a place to communicate and share our stories. I hope this helps anyone out there who needs it. Wendy. Whew. Wow. Wow. Yeah. Holy cow, wow. That, you see what I mean? I mean, that's insane. That's crazy. I mean, so you got to wonder, right? How many other people are out there? I mean, Wendy, thank you so much for sending that in. More than that, thank you for your strength and courage. I mean, that's an amazing story. And it kind of puts the human context to it all, that people are looking for. You kind of wonder, what you're looking for. Are you just looking for more humans out there? So I don't even know what other actual investigators would say about that. Hopefully they'll hear this. And, of course, I will respect your privacy, and I hope everybody out there is kind and and shows appreciation as well for her sharing the story with us. Thank you again so very much. All right, I hope you guys enjoyed that story. Don't forget to hit that like and subscribe button. We got a lot of stories to come. Don't forget to comment. Leave a comment. Send us, if you got a story, send it into my email. I got written right here below. And thank you again for joining me. Take care. We'll see you again real soon.